And welcome to tonight's matchup between the Immanuel Lancers and the AC Lincoln Hornets. Taking the tip will be Radical and number 22, Howard. Radical wins the tip, tipped but picked over by the Lincoln Hornets. Pass down low, shot tipped out, rebounded, and a foul. That was number 5, Ready. And Radical will take it up the floor. Pass over to Miller. He'll drive up and pass over to Radical in the corner. He'll fake. Cut out and pass over to Leduc up top. He'll drive in. Pass out to Radical in the corner. He'll drive around. Sends it over to Miller. Miller fakes. He'll drive in. Puts up a jumper. Too low, rebounded by Falkenberg. He'll put it back up, and he's got it. Gives the Lancers a 2-point lead. Some press. Ready will pass over to Stetzer. He'll try to drive up, get stuck. Pass over to Ready. Ready, high up the floor, tipped by Falkenberg and stolen by Falkenberg. He'll pass over to Radical. And Radical will take it up the floor. Pass over to Keeney. Fakes to Falkenberg, now I'm going to pass to Falkenberg on the corner. Down low to Radical. Radical loses it, gets it back, and a pass it to Falkenberg. He'll drive around. Pass over to Keeney. Keeney drives in, has a lane, puts it up. Just sends out, and out of bounds off the Lancers. Stetzer will pass it in down low, more pressed by the Lancers. Sends it over to Ready. He gets stuck, and then drive around. And pass over to Stetzer, high up the floor. He's got number 22, Howard, puts it up. And bounces out. And out of bounds off the Lancers. Ready will pass it in down low. Gets into Howard. Pass deflected by Falkenberg, picked up by Keeney. Pass over to Radical, and Radical will take it up the floor. Pass over to Leduc. Up top to Falkenberg. Over to Miller. Over to Radical. Up top to Leduc. Leduc drives in. Gets stuck. Gonna put it up. And gonna bounce out. Rebounded by Stetzer. And jump ball by Leduc. That'll be Lancer ball. Radical will pass it in down low. Gets it into Keeney. Keeney up top. Gonna pass over to Falkenberg. Fakes. And gonna pass over to Radical. Over to Miller. Miller will drive around, pass over to Keeney. Keeney over to Radical. Radical all the way over to Miller. Miller fakes, gonna drive in. Pass low to Falkenberg. Loses it for a second, gets it back, it's stripped, and picked up by Ready. Pass over to Hewling, stolen away by Keeney. Keeney stuck. And gonna take it back out. He'll drive back in. And pass out to Radical. All over to Miller. Miller's up at 3. Gonna not take it. Drives in, puts it up. Pass tips, picked up by Keeney. Over to Radical, tipped out of bounds off Howard. Radical will pass it in to Miller. And he'll pass over to Falkenberg. Up top to Leduc. He'll drive in, get stuck, and gonna pass out to Miller. Miller fakes. Pass over to Radical. Radical down low to Keeney. Out to Radical. Radical drives in, puts it up. Too low. Tipped by Falkenberg. Stetzer throws it out of bounds. Lancer ball. Eichstead will enter for Keeney. And Marek enters for Olsen. Radical will pass it in to Eichstead. Over to Falkenberg. Up top to Radical. Radical drives in. Pass out to Falkenberg. He'll drive around. All the way in. Gets stuck, and a pass it out to Radical. Up to Leduc. Over to Miller. Over to Radical. Radical a 3. Gonna bounce out. Rebounded by Miller. Gets stuck. Pass along to Radical. Radical puts it up, and he's got it off the glass. Gives Lance a 4-point lead, 4-0. Pass over to Hewling. Pass tipped by Eichstead. Saved by Eichstead. Pass over to Falkenberg. All the way over to Miller. Miller fakes. Up top to Eichstead. Over to Falkenberg. He'll drive in. Fake, and pass over to Leduc. He'll drive in. All the way in. Gets stripped. And out of bounds off the Hornets. Bauer enters for Miller. And Radical will pass it in down low. Gets it to Bauer. Over to Radical. Radical a 3. This one going to bounce out as well. Rebounded by Stetzer. High up the floor to Reddy. He'll drive in and pass out to Stetzer. Corner to Marek. Sends it over. Tipped out of bounds. Lancer ball. Passing Radical. Radical will take it up the floor. Gets a screen and a pass over to Bauer. Down low to Falkenberg. Puts it up, and he's got it off the glass. Sends the Lancer lead to 6. Pass over to Reddy. Reddy up the floor. Bounces out, drives around, and pass over to Stetzer. Stetzer 3. Bounces out, tipped, and picked up and passed out to Hewling. Hewling falls down, gonna tip it out to Reddy. Reddy a 3. Gonna bounce out as well, rebounded by Howard. Howard over to Hewling. Pass down low, stolen away, picked up by Eichstead. Pass over to Radical, and Radical will take it up the floor. Gonna pass over to Bauer. Down low to Leduc. And he travels. And timeout by the Hornets. 6-0, 6-point lead for the Lancers with 10:40 left. Pass into Marek. Over to Reddy. Reddy stripped. Stuck in the corner. Gonna pass out to Marek. Marek up the floor. And gonna hand it off to Stetzer. Down low to Mueling, and he is fouled. Sorry, Olsen. Reddy will pass it in to Olsen, and he's got it off the glass. First points of the night for the Hornets. Cuts the lead down to 4, 6-2. Pass into Radical, and Radical will take it up the floor. He'll drive around. All the way in. Gets stuck. Gonna pass out to Falkenberg. Falkenberg fakes. He'll drive in. He'll get stuck. Gets stripped. And picked up by Olsen. Over to Hewling. Hewling up the floor. Gonna bounce out. And pass over to Reddy. Over to Stetzer. Over to Reddy. Over to Hewling. Hewling thinks about a 3. Gonna fake it. And gonna pass over to Reddy. Over to Olsen. He'll drive around. Puts it up and blocked by Falkenberg. He'll get it back. And pass out to Reddy. Reddy will drive all the way around, all the way in. Gets stuck. Pass tipped by Radical and stolen by Radical. And he'll try to push the floor. Going to pass it to Falkenberg. Wasn't ready for it. Sent all the way to Hewling. Hewling tries to drive it in. Puts it up. Going to bounce out. Tipped around. Rebounded by Falkenberg. And he's going to push the floor. Pass over to Radical. Over to Eichstead. Eichstead will bounce out. Get stripped. He'll get it back. And pass over to Radical. Over to Leduc. Over to Falkenberg. Fakes to Radical. Send it down low to Eichstead. Eichstead stripped. And jump ball. Hornet ball. Miller will enter for Falkenberg. And Johnson will enter for Stetzer. Reddy will pass it in to Marek. Over to Reddy. Reddy will take it up the floor. Gets stuck. Pass up to Mueling. Up to Johnson, and he is fouled by Bauer. Johnston will shoot two, his first. Will air ball. Cornish enters for Eichstead. And Johnson will shoot his second. And that'll bounce out, rebounded by Leduc. Pass up to Bauer. Over to Radical, and he'll take it up the floor. And a timeout by the Lancers. 8:36 left, 6-2, 4-point lead for the Lancers. Radical up top, sends over to Miller. Over to Radical. Back over to Miller. Miller fakes, gonna drive in, cut out. And pass over to Radical. Over to Cornish. Cornish bounces around, gonna pass over to Radical, over to Miller. Miller fakes. Pass up to Cornish. Over to Miller. Miller over to Radical. Radical over to Miller. Miller will drive around. And pass on low to Radical. Tripped and stolen away. Mark up the floor. Going to make a move. Put it up and block from behind, but a foul. Mark will shoot two. First will fall. And his second will fall as well. Falkenberg enters for Leduc. And Bauer will pass it in to Radical. Pressed by the Hornets. Pass over to Miller. He'll take it up. Cross the line. And gets stripped. Picked up by Hewling. Tipped up to Marek. Mark puts up, gets blocked by Cornish, but foul. That's his second. Mark's first will fall. Cuts the lead to one. Chance to tie his second. Will bounce out. Rebounded by Howard. He'll put it back up. Tipped out. Rebounded by Howard. Tipped around. Picked up by Cornish. Sends it up. Picked up by Johnston. Over to Marek. Corner to Stetzer. Down low to Howard. Howard puts it up, and he's got it. Nope. Tripped out. Radical up top. Makes a move. Going to drive around. Cuts out and pass over to Miller. Over to Cornish. Over to Miller. Tipped over to Radical. Over to Cornish. Down low. Pass tipped and stolen away by Marek. Pass over to Stetzer. Little drive up top. Gets a screen. Drives in. Cuts out. Gonna pass it low to Johnson. Johnson puts it up. Too low. Rebounded by Fulkenberg. Pass over to Radical. Tipped out. He'll get it back. He'll try to push it. Gonna pass over to Cornish. Cornish drives in. Puts it up. Gets blocked from behind. Rebounded by Howard. Mark up the floor. Pass over to Hewling. Over to Howard. Corner to Stetzer. He'll drive in. Puts it up. And he's fouled. Stetzer's first. Will bounce out. Eichstead enters for Cornish. And Olsen and Reddy enter for Johnston and Hewling. Stetzer's second, a chance to tie. Will bounce out, tipped around, rebounded by Stetzer himself. He'll put it back up, blocked by Fulkenberg. Miller bounces out. Gets across the line. Pass over to Eichstead. All over to Radical. Radical fakes, and a pass over to Miller. He'll drive around. Pass over to Radical. Radical all over to Eichstead. Over to Miller. Over to Radical. Down low to Fulkenberg. He'll bounce out. Put it up. And he's fouled. Fulkenberg's first will fall. And his second will fall as well. Extends the lead to 3. Pass into Mark. Mark gonna push it, bounce out. And pass on low to Howard. Howard puts up a jumper. And he's got it. Cuts the lead down to 1. Pass into Radical. Radical up the floor. Fake and gonna pass over to Miller, back over to Radical. Over to Eichstead. Up to Radical, over to Miller. Radical over to Eichstead. Down low to Bauer. Tipped around and picked up by Reddy. Gonna pass over to Marek. Pass tipped and picked up by Bauer. Over to Radical, and Radical will take it up the floor. Pass over to Miller. Miller fakes. Gonna pass over to Radical. Up top to Miller. Over to Eichstead. All over to Radical. Radical over to Fulkenberg. He puts it up, and it's going to rim in. Sends the lead to 3. Reddy up top. Corner to Olsen. Over to Howard. Howard drives in. Bounces out. Going to pass over to Reddy. Corner to Stetzer. Pass down low to Howard. Gets stripped. Picked up by Eichstead. Pass over to Radical. Corner to Miller. Up top to Radical. Over to Miller. He'll drive around. And pass over to Radical. All over to Eichstead. Fakes. Sends it over to Miller. Over to Eichstead. And tipped out of bounds. Hornet ball. Passing to Hewling, back over to Reddy. Reddy up the floor. Corner to Howard. Up to Reddy. He'll drive around, get the screen. Bounces out and gonna pass over. Over to Hewling. Up to Reddy. Over to Olsen. Olsen stripped, picked up by Falkenberg. He's gonna try to push it. Gets stripped from behind by Stetzer. Stetzer saves it, but tipped out of bounds off Reddy. Radical will pass it in to Miller. He'll drive in and pass over to Radical. Over to Eichstead. Takes down low, gonna pass up to Radical. Radical all the way around and up to Eichstead. Over to Radical. All the way over to Miller. Over to Radical. Up to Eichstead. Eichstead drives around, gonna pass over to Miller, tipped and out of bounds, Hornet ball. Ready up the floor. Gets a screen, gonna drive around, cut out, and pass over to Olsen. Olsen drives in, stripped, and jump ball, that'll go with the Lancers. Keeney enters for Miller. And Leduc enters for Bauer. Pass into Radical, and Radical will take it up the floor. Pass blocked, and out of bounds off Hewling. Johnston and Mark will enter for Reddy and Howard. And Radical will pass it in from the corner to Falkenberg. He'll drive in and pass out to Radical. Over to Eichstead. Up to Radical. Corner to Keeney. Keeney fakes. Gonna drive around. Drive back in. Sends it out to Radical. Over to Eichstead. Over to Keeney. He'll drive in, cut out. Pass blocked and picked up by Falkenberg. Over Leduc. Leduc stripped. Picked up by Olsen, pass up to Mewling. And he'll drive around up top, try to bounce in, and pass it to Johnston. Over to Mark. Mark will drive in. Get stuck. Pass way out, rebounded by Eichstead. He stepped out of bounds. Hewling will pass it in down low. Sends it in, pass tipped. And out of bounds off the Hornets. Pass into Radical. And Radical will take it up the floor. Pass over to Eichstead. Up to Radical, over to Keeney. Up to Radical. Down low to Falkenberg. Down low Leduc, too far. Out of bounds off the Lancers. Hewling will take it up the floor. Gonna pass out to Stetzer. He'll drive all the way in, puts it up, and he's got the floater to fall. That's the lead down to 1. Radical up the floor, 1:20 left. Sends it over to Eichstead. Down low to Falkenberg. Out to Eichstead. Eichstead a jumper. Bounces out, tipped, and rebounded by Leduc. Leduc puts it up. His shot will rim out. Tipped around, rebounded by Keeney. Keeney out to Radical. Radical over to Eichstead. He'll fake, send it over to Radical. Over to Keeney. He'll drive in. Pass down low, tipped out. Jump ball, that'll go with the Hornets. Hewling will pass over to Mark. He'll bounce out. Try to drive in, falls down, tipped around. Picked up by Mark himself. He'll get stripped. Ball on the floor again. Jump ball, this time it'll go with the Lancers. Keeney will pass it in to Fulkenberg. High up to Radical. Radical up the floor, gonna bounce out. And pass over to Eichstead. Over to Keeney. Keeney drives in. Puts up a jumper. Too hard off the glass. Rebounded by Marek. Mark up the floor. 25 seconds left. He'll drive all the way in. Put it up. Too low. Tipped around. Rebounded by Fulkenberg. 20 seconds left. Fulkenberg up the floor. Gonna bounce out. Pass over to Radical. Radical puts it up, and he's got it off the glass. 15 seconds left. Pass over to Reddy. 10 seconds left. 3 will tie. 5 seconds left. Reddy will drive around. Cut out. Pass over to Marek. Lose it. Reddy a 3. And air balls. 12-9. 3-point lead for the Lancers at the half. We'll be back in about 7 minutes. Pass over to Hewling. Hewling will drive around. And send up to Redding, too far. Out of bounds, Lancer ball. Thompson up top. Gonna drive around. Bounce out. Put up a 3. Gonna bounce out. Rebounded by Eichstead. Sends it over to Miller. Over to Eichstead. Up to Miller. Over to Thompson. Thompson fakes. Over to Miller. Over to Eichstead. Over to Miller. Over to Thompson. Thompson up top. Over to Eichstead. Eichstead fakes. Gonna pass over to Thompson. Tipped. And picked up by Thompson. Over to Eichstead. Over to Thompson. He'll fake. Pass over to Eichstead. Over to Miller. Over to Eichstead. Over to Thompson. Thompson fakes. Drives around up top. Send over to Miller. Over to Thompson. Over to Eichstead. Down low to Leduc. Over to Falkenberg. Tipped around and picked up by Howard. Sent over to Hewling. Stuck in the corner. Pass out to Reddy. Corner to Olsen. He'll drive in, get stripped. He'll get it back. Stripped again. This time picked up by Leduc. Tipped up to Thompson. Thompson up the floor. He'll drive around. Cut out. And pass over to Miller. Over to Eichstead. Over to Miller. Over to Eichstead. Over to Miller. Over to Eichstead. Over to Miller. Over to Thompson. Thompson a 3. This one going to rim out. Rebounded by Olsen. Ready over to Hewling. Corner to Stetzer. Down low to Howard. Howard puts it up. And he rims it in. Pass over to Miller. Up to Thompson. Over to Miller. He'll drive up top and send it over to Eichstead. Corner to Thompson. He'll drive in. Put up his floater. And get a bounce around and in. Extends the lead to 3. Sends over to Hewling. Over to Reddy, too far. Rebounded by Leduc. Up to Thompson. Over to Eichstead. Over to Miller. Over to Eichstead. Over to Miller. Over to Eichstead. Over to Miller. And tipped out of bounds. Knudsen will enter for Miller. And he'll pass it in to Thompson. Over to Eichstead. Over to Thompson. Over to Eichstead. Down low to Falkenberg. He gets stripped. And picked up by Hewling. Over to Reddy. Over to Hewling. Too far out of bounds. Lancer ball. Pass over to Eichstead. Over to Thompson. He'll drive in. Pass over to Eichstead. Over to Thompson. He'll drive up. And pass over to Knudsen. Out to Thompson. He'll drive in. Out to Knudsen. Fake over to Thompson. Over to Eichstead. All the way over to Knudsen. Up to Thompson. Thompson a 3. This one going to bounce it as well. Tipped. And picked up by Hewling. And jump ball. That'll stay with the Lancers. Bauer enters for Leduc, and Knudsen will pass it in down low. To Falkenberg. Jump ball. This time it's going to go with the Hornets. Leduc enters for Falkenberg. Pass in ready. Over to Marek. Down low, pass tipped, picked up by Hewling. He'll drive in. And steps out of bounds, lands the ball. Cornish enters for Eichstead. And a timeout by the Hornets. 14-11, 11:45 left in the second half. Knutson exit. Eichstead did not. He will pass it in to Thompson. Gets it to Thompson. Back over to Eichstead, and Eichstead will take it up the floor. Over to Cornish. Up to Eichstead. Over to Thompson. Thompson fakes. He'll drive in. And pass up top to Eichstead. Over to Cornish. Over to Eichstead. Over to Thompson. Over to Eichstead. Over to Thompson. Thompson a three. This one going to bounce out as well. Rebounded and sent over to Reddy. Back over to Reddy. Corner stolen away by Bauer. Hands off to Thompson. And Thompson will take it up the floor. Hand off to Eichstead. Over to Cornish. Over to Eichstead. Over to Thompson. Over to Eichstead. Over to Cornish. Over to Eichstead. Over to Thompson. Over to Eichstead. Over to Cornish. Over to Eichstead. Over to Cornish. Cornish drives in. Sends it out to Bauer. Leduc. Leduc puts it up, and he is fouled. And Leduc will shoot two. And his first will fall, extends the lead to 4. Miller enters for Eichstead. And Howard enters for Olsen. And Leduc second. Will fall as well. Extends the lead to 5. Pass into Reddy. Over to Hewling. Hewling up the floor. Gets stripped. He'll get it back. And pass over to Reddy. Fakes. Gonna drive around. Pass down low. Tipped and out of bounds. Lancer ball. Pass into Miller. Back over to Thompson. Thompson will take it up the floor. He'll fake and pass over to Miller. Over to Thompson. Over to Cornish. Over to Thompson. Over to Miller. Over to Thompson. Over to Cornish. Down low, pass tipped and stolen away by Hewling. Sends it over to Marek, and he is fouled. Falkenberg and Keeney enter for Cornish and Leduc. And Ready will pass it in down low. Sends it in high to Marek. Corner to Setzer. All the way over to high for Hewling. Pass it to Miller, over to Thompson, over to Miller. Miller up top. Over to Keeney. Over to Miller. Over to Thompson. Thompson fakes, he'll drive in, put up a jumper, and gonna rim out, rebounded by Bauer. Bauer over to Keeney. Keeney puts it up, and he is fouled. Keeney's first. Will fall. Sends the lead to 6. And his second. Will fall as well. Sends the lead to 7. And timeout by the Lancers. 18-11, 7-point lead with 9:35 left. Pass into Hewling. Hewling stuck. And jump ball, that'll go with the Lancers. Thompson will pass it into Keeney. Keeney over to Thompson. Thompson drives up top. Drives in, cuts out, and gonna pass over to Miller. Miller fakes. Pass over to Keeney. Keeney up to Miller. Over to Thompson. Over to Miller. He'll fake. Pass over to Thompson. Thompson fakes. Gonna pass over to Miller. Back over to Thompson. Thompson a 3. This one gonna bounce out as well. Jump ball. That'll go with the Hornets. Leduc and Eichstätt will enter for Bauer and Keeney. And Hewling exits for Marek. Pass into Marek. He'll pass over to Ready, over to Stetzer. Over to Marek. He gets stripped, picked up by Leduc. Over to Falkenberg, over to Thompson. Thompson up the floor. Leading by 7. Over to Miller. Over to Thompson. Goes drive in, and pass over to Miller. Miller a 3. Gonna bounce out, rebounded by Howard. Sends it over to Ready. Ready fakes, gonna pass over to Marek. Corner to Stetzer. Stetzer drives in, gets stuck, and travels. Pass over to Thompson, over to Eichstätt. Eichstätt up the floor. Over to Cornish. Down low to Falkenberg. Out to Cornish. Cornish to jumper. Gonna rim out. Rebounded by Howard. And Howard will take it up the floor. Pass over to Olsen. He'll drive in, get stripped, And out of bounds off the Lancers. Ready, you'll pass it in. Out to Mark. Over to Olsen. Down low to Stetzer. Stetzer jumper. Tipped out, rebounded by Cornish. He'll pass over to Thompson, and Thompson will take it up the floor. Hand off to Eichstead. Fakes, and pass over to Thompson. Down low to Falkenberg. Over to Cornish. He'll drive in, put it up, and it circles around it in. Lance is now up by 9. Pass corner. And out to Redding. Over to Stetzer. Up to Reddy. Over to Mark. He'll drive in. Gets stuck. Pass out to Reddy. Reddy drives in. Gets stripped. Picked up by Leduc. Thompson drives in. Cuts out. And going to pass out to Cornish over to Eichstead. Over to Cornish. Over to Thompson. Thompson drives in. Sub a jumper. Too far. Tipped out. Rebounded by Marek. Sorry, Reddy. Reddy drives in and loses it out of bounds. Knudsen will enter for Leduc. And Eichstead up top. Fakes. And going to send it over to Knudsen. Over to Eichstead, down low to Cornish. Thompson in the corner, a 3. Also going to bounce out. Stuck, and going to pass out to Hewling. Down low to Howard. Out to Stetzer. Stetzer drives in, gets stuck, and going to pass out to Hewling. Hewling a jumper. Tips around and out, tipped out, and rebounded by Eichstead. Eichstead gonna find a seam and take it up the floor. Drives back around. Fakes and gonna pass over to Thompson, over to Cornish. Up to Thompson. Over to Eichstead. Eichstead up top. Over to Cornish. Now low to Falkenberg. He'll drive in, gets stripped, and sent out to Eichstead. Over Knudsen. Knudsen fakes, he'll drive in. Pass down low to Thompson. Out to Cornish. Cornish a 3. Bounces around and in, but hit off the top of the backboard. Ready, pass over to Stetzer. Stetzer fakes, gonna pass over to Hewling. Scanning, pass tipped, and picked up by Reddy. He'll fake, pass over to Hewling. Hewling all the way over to Reddy. He'll drive in, get stripped. And jump ball that'll stay with the Lancers. Bauer enters for Eichstead. And Bauer will pass it in to Thompson. And he'll take it up the floor. Fakes. And going to pass over to Cornish. Up to Thompson, over to Knudsen. Over to Thompson. Thompson fakes. Gonna drive in. Hand off to Cornish. Gets stripped. Cornish gets it back. Sends it up to Falkenberg. All the way over to Thompson. Thompson a 3. This time he's got it. Extends the lead to 9. Sorry, 12. Pass it around, picked up by Thompson. Thompson cuts out. Gonna drive in. Gets stuck, gonna pass it to Falkenberg. Falkenberg passes it to Bauer. Bauer puts it up, gets blocked, but fouled. Bauer is first. Will bounce out. Clokey will enter for Knudsen. And a timeout by the Lancers. 23-11, 12-point lead with 4:37 left. Bauer second. Will fall. Sends the lead to 13. Pass into Hewling. Over to Stetzer. Stetzer up the floor. Going to bounce out. Pass all the way over. Tipped out of bounds off Cornish. Koenig enters for Thompson. And Reddy enters for no one. Pass into Olsen. He'll drive in. Puts it up. Gets stripped. Smacked around and picked up by Koenig. And handed off to Clokey. And Clokey will take it up the floor. He'll drive around. Get stuck. And going to pass over to Bauer. Down low to Fulkenberg. Puts it up. And he's got it. Sends the lead to 15. Ready up top. Corner to Eichstead. Not Eichstead. Hewling. Pass up to Koenig. Koenig drives in. Puts it up. And he's got it off the glass. Nice drive by Koenig. Get a timeout by the Hornets. 28-11. 17-point lead for the Lancers with 3:48 left. Lancers leading by 17, 28-11 with 3:48 left. Reddy will pass it in. And pass back over to Reddy, and he will take it up the floor. Sends it over to Hewling. Fakes, and going to pass over to Reddy. Corner to Marek. He'll drive in, put up a floater, and it's fouled. And Marek will shoot two. Marek's first. Will bounce out. And his second. Will bounce out as well. Rebounded by Koenig. Koenig gets stripped, tipped around, and picked up by Fulkenberg. Pass over to Koenig. Koenig bounces out. Gonna pass over to Clokey. Clokey fakes. He'll drive in. All the way in. Hands off to Koenig. Koenig puts it up, and he's got it off the glass. Koenig again extends the Lancer lead to 19. Reddy up top. Sends it over to Hewling. Back over to Reddy. Reddy bounces around. Gonna pass over to Hewling. He'll drive in. Sends it over to Howard. Howard puts it up. And gonna bounce around and out. Rebounded by Keedy. Pass up to Bauer. Bauer up the floor. Corner to Koenig. Koenig fakes. He'll drive in. Gets stuck. And gonna pass up to Keeney. Corner to Bauer. He'll get it. And pass over to Clokey. Clokey up top. Gets a screen. Gonna hand off to Koenig. Koenig gets stripped and picked up by Marek. He'll put it up and blocked from behind by Koenig, but a foul. Marks first. Will bounce out. Johnston and William will enter. And Knudsen will enter for Bauer. And Marek second. Will bounce out as well. Rebounded by Falkenberg. Pass up to Koenig. And Koenig will take it up the floor. Drives around, cuts out, and going to pass over to Keeney. Fakes, going to drive around, hand off to Falkenberg, picked up by Keeney. Wasn't ready for it. He'll drive in. Pass down low to Koenig. Koenig puts it up. Too low. Gets it back. Puts it up again. Tipped out. Rebounded by Koenig himself. Going to drive back in. Puts it up again. He's fouled in one! Koenig a chance for a three-point play and extending the lead to 22. His one and only. Will bounce out, tipped, rebounded by Clokey. He'll take it back out up top. Sends it over to Falkenberg. He'll put up a three! Too far, tipped out of bounds off the Hornets. Howard and Kastner will enter for Reddy and Olsen. And Knudsen will pass it in down low. Gets it into Falkenberg. Falkenberg a three! Too far again. Saved by Keeney, but he stepped out of bounds. Pass into Howard. Sends it over to Marek. Corner to Howard, too far. And that'll be Lancer ball. Pass into Keeney. Keeney will drive around, bounce out. Drives in. Hand off to Knudsen. Knudsen drives around. All the way in, puts it up. Tipped around and in. Howard up the floor. Pass over, tipped and stolen by Keeney. He'll save it. Koenig tipped and picked up by the Hornets. Ball on the ground, tipped out of bounds. Hornet ball. Pass corner to Kastner. Up top to Mark. He'll drive in. Puts it up. And he is fouled. Marks first. Will bounce out. Into second. Will bounce out as well. Rebounded by Clokey. And Clokey will take it up the floor. He'll drive around. Cut out. And pass over to Koenig. Koenig drives around. Gonna bounce out. Drive in. And pass out to Keeney. Keeney over to Falkenberg. Falkenberg fakes, gonna drive in. Pass over to Knudsen. Knudsen drives around. Over to Keeney. Keeney over to Falkenberg. Falkenberg fakes, drives around, bounces out, and it's blocked but fouled. And Falkenberg will shoot for 3 free throws. Falkenberg's first of 3. Will bounce around and in. Second. Will bounce out. And his third. Will bounce out as well. Tipped. And out of bounds. Off John. Nope. Off Koenig. Pass in to Howard. He'll drive around, get stuck, bounce out. And pass corner to Marek. He'll drive around. Pass down low. He'll put it up. And he's fouled and 1. And William will shoot his free throw at the end of the game. Chance to cut the margin down to 21. It is up. And it'll bounce out. 35-13, final score. Lancers win by 22. The C team won their first game of the year by 12 earlier today. Lancers JV pull it out and win by 22. Varsity will be the final one of the day. Chance to, for the first time this year, have all 3 boys basketball teams win.